again, welcome back. Continuing the theme of trying to save wood from the firewood pile, I've got this piece of English walnut and it's 12 inches by about 6 inches at its widest point, but it's a weird shape. It has quite severe cracking on the ends because it had sat quite a while before I was actually given it. And if I show you the end, you can see the cracking here goes right to the pith, and I don't know how deep it's going to be. Also, the shape of the piece, as you can see, it has a large dip there, and it is a weird shape. I'm thinking vase. I don't know what size it will end up at. However, what I intend to do, as I've said in the previous video, is to go through my firewood pile and have a look at stuff that could possibly be rescued, if you like. It's always interesting to have a go at things like that. So basically we're looking at a vase, and I'll start rounding it off, seeing how it goes. I think there could be more air in the end piece if it stays together. And I think a bit of milliput will be necessary in certain areas as well. But it'll be an interesting turn. So without further ado, let's turn this English walnut vase, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to be using the Simon Hope 1/2 inch bowl gouge. As you can see, this is the furthest piece sticking out with a knot, so I'm going to start there to get that down and then get it to round or near enough round and see how we're going. I'll then put a tenon on, possibly, I'm not sure which end yet, I'll decide that later on. And then it's a case of just seeing if we can save it and how bad the cracking is and whether it's going to stay together. I've predetermined the speed. We've got a very slight bit of judder at 750, so I've just turned it down to 738, 740 RPM and just nibble away. And I don't normally wear a glove, but we've got bark and everything here, so I just want to give myself a little bit of protection on my hands. Okay, so I formed a tenon. I'm using the 4-inch gripper jaws from Axminster. They're serrated on the inside with a parallel form on the inside of the jaws. They give a really good solid grip, especially on this wood, which isn't really that dry. It's about 14%, and I've made the tenon slightly larger to allow for compression of the fibre, so I can keep pitching it up and don't run out of tenon with regards to diameter. I brought up the tailstock and I swapped out the star drive, or the star drive centre, for the ring centre, and we're just going to carry on and see what occurs. So I've reached the stage where I'm quietly confident that we're going to get a nice shape out of this, and have some nice voids as well. However, the cracking here needs to be addressed, as it does here at the base. Now, a better picture will show you here, there's quite a lot of radial cracking here, and that's the one that's going to give the most problem. Now, what I'm going to do at this stage is treat it all with thin CA glue and let it cure properly. Once the final shape has been achieved, then I will decide whether I'm going to apply some milliput, some black milliput, I don't know, we'll see. However, that's the stage I'm at now, so I'm going to face this piece off here and then address it with thin CA glue. Okay, so now I'll sort out the CA. Okay, so I've let the CA cure overnight, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that what I've done up to now is going to be the final fill, because all I've allowed is thin CA to penetrate. I've put 5 or 6 applications of it, and there will hopefully be a better bond in the crack, so that it's less likely to fall apart or to get any bigger. And the same on here, and some of the radial ones I've treated as well, just to give me a bit more chance, if you like, of getting this piece finished. So what I'm going to do now is to carry on with the final shaping, and then we'll see how it looks. I'm not sure whether I'm going to keep this lip here. I might do, we'll see, and let's see how it progresses. So I'm quite happy with the general shape of this now, and there are some tool marks here because it's very difficult not to get the tool marks when you've got so much air banging about and this knot here, etc. So I've got to take my time, sand that out. That's going to be, I should think, where it's going to be. It might go a little bit narrower down here, I'm not sure yet, but I think I'm going to keep the lip here. I wanted to take it down a bit further because obviously the bark was sort of up here, and because of that dip there, we're going to be getting a void for sure. Okay, so I'll carry on with the sanding now. I'll sand up to 320. Maybe I won't use true grit on this occasion, so I might sand up to 400 after applying sanding sealer, pre-thin sanding sealer, possibly sand up to 400, and then on to the Hampshire sheen, and that'll be the outside essentially finished. Quite pleased how the CA has penetrated here. It's a bit bitty there, but we'll sort that out at the end. But it's held it together up to now anyway. Okay, I'll sand up and I'll come back when I'm buffing it off. I thought this might be of interest to you. It's just a method that I use with this sort of a turning. When you've got a void like so, when you're actually turning, you're turning air. So it's very difficult to stop the gouge from bouncing a bit. So consequently, you get little valleys. Now I had some here because of this void here, and I just mark light pencil marks in the valleys that I can see. Gives me a guide of where I should sand. Now this had some tool marks on it, sort of in this area here because of the bumping. I marked it like I have here, and it gives me a guide. When it's spinning, it shows it, and then what happens is when I have done enough or feel I can't do any more with the power sanding, then I stop the lathe, take the arbor out of the sander and do it by hand, and in circular motions, keeping the profile until it comes to a nice perfect finish like this. Now I'm using 120 grit to do this initially, and then I'll go through the grits up to 400, and then we'll put a finish on it. Just thought it might be of interest to you. What I can see is any tool marks, nice smooth surface. I'm going to apply Hampshire sheen pre-thin sanding sealer now, and that will bring up any areas which might need a little bit more attention. Bearing in mind, again, it's going to seep into the softer areas. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so that's the outside finish now. I've put two applications of Hampshire sheen high gloss on there. I most probably will take it to the buffing wheel after I've hollowed out, and I'll be using Simon Hope's Steady Rest to give me a little bit more stability. So we'll set things up now and start to hollow out. Okay, so that's the hollowing finished. Very pleased it's held together, and from the very beginning it was just a piece of firewood basically, and there's a crack that ran right down the length of the blank here, and it goes right through, which I'll show you in a minute. But obviously with the window, that's held together, which is great, and that side doesn't look too bad. It's when you turn it round. However, and the end on the lip, on the entry point here, there's a lot of cracking here, loads of hairline cracks, etc. But it is what it is. As I say, it's a piece of firewood, and it was an exercise to see if we could hollow it out and keep it together, which we did. Okay, so that's the inside sanded now. I got to apply a couple of coats of Hampshire Sheen citrus burnishing oil on the inside. When I've parted off, I shall then take it to the buffing wheel to give it a final buff. I was considering just dremeling out these little cracks here and filling with colour, but to be honest, as I said in the beginning, it's a piece of firewood. It was just a practice piece essentially to see that it would stay together, which it did. And even on the front here, on the lip, there's a myriad of tiny hairline cracks. So it's really not worth the effort. If it was a piece I was going to sell or something I would take into the house, then obviously I would spend much more time on it. But it's always good sometimes to have a go at pieces where if you fail, it's not a great deal, not a loss, and you can try various things as you're going through. Okay, so I'll do that then, part him off, take him to the buffing wheel, and then I'll show you the end result. I'll change my mind again. I rubbed down the surface with 1200 soft pad just to take the layer of Hampshire Sheen high gloss off, and I decided to experiment, because I've never done it before, I'm sure other people have, putting the burnishing oil on top of this. I let everything dry and then buff it on the wheels when I part it off, as I said, and it'd be interesting to see how it looks. And well, again, it's because the thing is here with the track marks, etc., the oil will go in there and hopefully look all right. Okay, so we'll let that go off now and let it dry for a couple of hours before I buff it. I don't think I'll need another coat on the outside, but I will on the inside. Well, here's the vase finished, and it stands at 11.5 inches tall by 7 inches wide at its widest point, and the wall thickness is around the 6mm. Very pleased how it turned out, considering it was just a piece of firewood, and it's a good exercise. And I think what it proves is that you can take some wood and experiment with it, and if things don't go right, it doesn't really matter, because it was going on the fire anyway. And surprisingly enough, I'm really pleased how the citrus burnishing oil has come out after I just sanded back the Hampshire Sheen with 1200 grit and then applied the citrus burnishing oil, let that cure, and I did actually aid it a bit with a bit of heat, and then put it on the buffing wheels with some carnauba wax, and it's got a nice hard finish, smooth finish, and it's full of character. Well, thank you very much indeed for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers now.